supporters of Dave's Tackle Box.
And good evening, welcome to Dave's Tackle Box. It is Sunday the 27th of October 2013 and it's already, even though it's not over yet, it's looking like it's going to be a day that's going to be significant when we look back at it. Apart from the fact that it's John Cleese's birthday apparently, as Dave Dawn's always telling you how important Twitter is. I wouldn't know that if I wasn't on Twitter. We're also set here in the UK to get some really serious storms tonight, so everybody look after yourselves tonight. I'm not sure what it's going to mean for my flight in the morning. I guess I'll find out in the morning. Maybe I get to work from home this week. Who knows? But there's also some sad news as well. Lou Reed passed away today. I don't know what of. I don't know. He wasn't a young man anymore, I guess. So just before the start of the show there, we had a very tiny little tribute to Lou Reed. It's a shame that he's gone. On tonight's show, I've finally found some time to record a VT. So for the first time in probably a few months, we've got a VT. Honestly. I've also got a guest who's going to give us an update on basically on a little bit of bother he was having with his local authority earlier in the week, and he'll be coming up straight after the titles. And here we are. Okay, so it was a little bit mysterious there, I guess, for those of you who aren't in chat and don't already know. I'm going to be joined in a minute by Mark Shaw, who's a sort of regular viewer of VTTV. And I would say, like, we exchange Twitter messages quite a lot. Well, he appeared on the Haze Hour, 3 nights ago now, Thursday night. And he'd had a bit of a problem with his local authority. Let me set the scene. Mark is an e-cig vendor on a market, I think, in a Tower Hamlets Council area. And he turned up at work on Thursday morning and got a bit of a surprise. Mark, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
So this what happened on Thursday morning? Remind us.
Basically, I turned up to work as normal, handed in my ticket to the market inspector and where they'd allocate me a pitch, and was told, "Oh, sorry, you're not allowed to sell e-cigarettes in the market anymore." That was a shock to me, and I tried to, get to the bottom of it, like why, what's going on here? This is the first I've heard of it. And they said they'd have received an email saying that trading of e-cigs in Tower Hamlets had been stopped. And they made a phone call. I pushed this. I said, no, this doesn't sound right. They made a phone call, and I was told there on the spot that it was to do with the smoke-free policy in Tower Hamlets. It contravened the smoke-free policy. That didn't ring true to me.
Well, that's an interesting sort of view to take for a smokeless product, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, that's why I knew there was something not right with that side of the story. But they was on the phone to an higher authority who was giving them all this information. But when I got home, I said to him, I need someone I need to speak to about this. Can you give me some details? And they gave me the number of the markets manager of Tower Hamlets, who basically controls all the markets. Went home, phoned her, and she said, no, it wasn't the smoke-free policy. It was to do with trading standards. Trading standards have said that basically these products were now banned. That's what she was more or less telling me.
Right.
She did actually say that some people have received letters regarding, they'd made visits to people and they'd received letters regarding the products they were selling. Well, I'd had a visit from Trading Standards 3 to 4 weeks ago. Not a problem at all. As I said before, I actually forced them to take my name and address. They was about to leave my store without even taking my name. I asked them to take my name and address so they could, because they said that the regulations change all the time. So I said, well, if you've got my details, you can always forward me and I can always stay up to date. So I thought that was the last of that.
So I think it's pretty fair assessment then. It's fair to say that you and Trading Standards were on the same wavelength and everybody was happy at that point.
Yeah, they complimented on me on how much I know about my product, and one of them even said, it's refreshing to see someone who has such a passion for what they sell. It's very rare in the market these days. That was his exact words.
Which is quite a telling sort of sentence in its own right, probably.
Yeah.
But we won't go there, yeah?
Yeah.
So you're stuck now with this kind of this muddled message as to why you can't practice your trade, yeah?
That was what I was stuck with at the time, but I kept chasing up the marketing manager because they wasn't exactly quick in getting back to me. And after a couple of calls on Friday,
it's not like the council, is it?
No, not at all. Exactly. That's what I said. I'd like to have thought that they was running around trying to find something to make it stick, but they was probably just sitting there sipping coffee and taking tea breaks, if you get what I mean. But I eventually on Friday, the second call I made that went through to the voicemail, I basically said, look, if I don't hear back by the end of the day, I said, as you can understand, it's a matter of urgency to me. If I don't receive an explanation by the end of the day, I will seek legal advice. Again, that was around about midday. Still hadn't received anything come 2:30 in the afternoon. So I phoned again and finally got through to speak directly to the markets manager again. She informed me that they had received a document, which I've seen now, which is quite an interesting document, an internal document regarding e-cigarettes. And she said that it was totally her fault what had happened to me on Thursday, but I was free to trade. She apologised, said it was sorry, it was her fault. She said that she didn't put in the email to the market inspectors that people are still allowed to trade e-cigarettes.
Right, and you told me that before we came on air, didn't you? And that is just such a bizarre statement. I mean,
yeah.
You forgot to tell people that it's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that can only make sense, surely, on the back of something that implied that it wasn't, that she might have said before. I don't know.
Yeah, it does kind of imply that somewhere along the line someone may have hinted that it wasn't okay to sell e-cigarettes in the markets anymore. Or in Tower, see, the general gist I got of this wasn't just markets, it was Tower Hamlets. That was what they was more or less explaining to me before I got clarification. Well, as I say, I received this document. She apologised on the telephone. Didn't apologise in writing, but I do have it in writing that I'm free to trade as long as everything's up to trading standards, which is obvious. You know, people are free to trade electronic cigarettes in Tower Hamlets. Reading this document, I'm not entirely sure that it is a trading standards document, because there's some things in there that's just, you know, there's bits they're saying about parents shouldn't encourage their children to use e-cigarettes or e-shisha. There's things saying schools should actively discourage use on their premises and discourage children due to safety reasons. That
sounds more like somebody's opinion than anything else, maybe.
Does. Yeah, well, there was one more thing. I just want to quickly read this. This caught my attention. It says, many e-liquid refills may contain more than one fatal dose of nicotine. In Israel, a young child died after consuming e-liquid. Now, that to me is just, there's something's gone on here. They've received a document from somebody probably added a few bits to it or whatever, and it just seems to me that there's a bit more to that document than meets the eye.
That to me sounds like a classic case of scaremongering. I mean, I don't dispute that a child did die, and that would be very, very sad if indeed that's true. But I would imagine there's been a lot less casualties as a result of sort of that could be traced back to e-liquid than they have for other household products that you might find under the average kitchen sink, for example. I mean, that sounds like somebody's personal agenda spewed onto a Word document, doesn't it?
If you read the whole lot, that's exactly what it's saying. It's more or less that they're trying to strike the fear of God into people about e-cigarettes, which brings me on to, apparently in the local, we get a weekly newspaper which is printed by the council. It's posted to everyone's doors in the boroughs. It's a free newspaper. I haven't seen the article yet. It should be online tomorrow, but I've had a friend phone me today, and there's a piece in there all about electronic cigarettes, basically echoing that document, saying that people shouldn't use them because they may, I stress that word, he kept stressing that word, may have solvents and nasty chemicals in them. They may. It doesn't say that they've found any with nasty chemicals or solvents, but they may. And apparently the whole piece is so anti-e-cig, it's unbelievable, as if they're actively discouraging people from buying e-cigs within the borough and using them within the borough.
I find that kind of, I don't know what you would call it, I mean, it's reporting. If it's been, even if it's a council run rag, it's still journalism of sorts. And just that entire expression, I've learned, but probably only in the last year or so, that when somebody says they might contain this and they might contain that, then really, as any kind of evidence or as the factual basis for any opinion you're going to form, you might as well just disregard it. It means they made it up or they heard a rumour. There's nothing in there that would stand up in a court, is there? Or maybe the European Parliament, but not in a court, and it shocks me still. It really does. It might contain, what was it, solvents?
Solvents, yeah. May contain solvents.
Yeah. Mine may contain biscuit crumbs because my desk's a mess and I mix my own. May contain solvents. I mean, they really, we ought to take into account for that. So, and I've no doubt that if that does appear online, it will be taken into account.
Oh, I can't wait to tweet it, Dave. I
can't wait to get the URL, and I dare say I'm speaking for several other members of the VTTV team, and a fair number of our viewers, I suspect, as well. Yeah. Because if they're going to print crap like that, they're going to have to substantiate it.
Well, no, exactly. They got, and that's what I was saying. Like I was saying to my friend, as a vendor, there may be some sort of, not action, but some sort of thing I could give to this, because basically they're trying to put people off buying e-cigarettes, so they're directly damaging my business if they're saying that there's vendors within the borough selling dangerous e-liquids. Right. Do you get what I mean? Well, not being specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, just doing that. What are you doing? Another thing, just to follow up.
Sure.
Out trading today. I was trading yesterday, all went normally. Out trading today, I actually had the free trading standards guys who come to my store 3 weeks ago, come to my store again today. They didn't speak to me. I was dealing with a customer, but I called them out the corner of my eye. They was there for a good 5 minutes, and they was looking for all my stuff, and they went off without saying a word. So again, I would love to have all this on video evidence, actually, because if anything ever does come to pass, I'm going to say, well, how comes on 2 accounts they've not even said a word? If I'm endangering anybody, if they honestly thought that I was endangering the public, I was selling stuff I shouldn't be selling, they would tell me. Surely,
of course they would, and that sounds to me very like you're being checked out. Somebody at the council has had to retract whatever they said on Thursday, and have asked trading standards to come down. And in fairness to whoever did what at the council, they probably see it as covering their own arses. If there is a political sort of message filtering through the council that e-cigs are evil and they contain solvents and nasties and all the rest of it, having just issued an email that says you're okay to carry on selling them, that could very well be a case of somebody covering their own backside, couldn't it? And asking trading standards to make sure that you are compliant.
Yeah, no, most definitely. But the thing is, e-cigs are definitely on the agenda at Tower Hamlets now, because another little insight I was let into in my phone conversation with the council on Friday was that very day they had received a council-wide email saying that e-cigs are to be banned on council premises, which is another council now that's going to ban e-cigarette use on council premises.
Which, whilst upsetting, is not entirely surprising, is it? There's a pattern starting to emerge there with the government authorities. They don't know, do they? They don't know whether how much notice they should take of some of the gibberish that is that is published by supposedly knowledgeable people. I've got a little bit of video which, if I've got time, I'm going to show right at the end of tonight's show, which gives a bit of insight into how a lot of these so-called medical professionals in the universities and what have you form their opinions, and how they form their ideas and what they publish, which I found absolutely fascinating. I did actually put it on my Facebook page, and I will get to that at the end of the show anyway. But just to round off your own situation here, Mark. So the situation now is you've got a piece of paper or an email that's telling you you're okay, you can carry on selling stuff. Yeah, but I guess you're looking over your shoulder a bit at the moment.
Yeah, of course. Which, like, don't get me wrong, trading standards needs to be out there. Like, you can't get down on the trading standard. They need to be out there, and they do need to be finding these. As I say, this may be blowing my own trumpet, but I feel I'm the only one in this area who actually sells e-cigs who knows what they're selling.
Right.
Whereas people just see it as they're selling an e-cig with a bit of juice and that's it. A lot of them don't even sell the juice. Do you get what I mean? And they don't really know what they are. They can't really tell people about homes and, what resistance to be using and things like that. And it is a bit shocking. And there does need to be some sort of guidance there when you're selling someone an e-cig, with nicotine liquid. There does. You have to be responsible with that, because it can cause harm if used, in an unsensible manner. If you get what I mean, it can. So
I absolutely get what you mean, and what you've just said fits in very well with the comments that the trading standards guy made to you about. It was refreshing to meet somebody who really knew what they were selling and what's in their products and what have you.
Yeah, no, it is, and I take pride in what I do. I've ever since I've been following this, I started vending after I got into the campaigning, and personally, I am not going to give them anything. I'm even going to do a thing now, which I don't need to do, because I have the liquid I sell comes from Europe. I sell liquid juice, liquor. It comes from Europe. I get it from their European distribution centre. It's perfectly labelled, it's perfect. But I was talking to someone, and one thing I'm going to do now, I'm sending it off for my own personal, a few samples for a toxicology report. I don't have to do that because I've already got their toxic. But if I do that as well, that to me means I'm even covering myself even more. I'll go that extra mile just so that these people could not have any ammunition to throw at us at the end of the day. And I think that's what it should be. It's not a volatile business to be in, but it's one that you've got to tread very carefully at the moment.
I think you do, and we hinted towards there that there are maybe some other traders who aren't as knowledgeable and aren't, and perhaps aren't as honest as yourself, I think what the council have got wrong here is that they've clearly tried to sort of blanket ban, didn't they?
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
The reality is, if they believe that there are people selling liquids with solvents in and anything like that at the moment, they should be targeting those individuals.
Yeah, of course, yeah, not just going, let's just say no one can sell them.
And I've never met a vapor that would take issue with that. If trading standards came along to another stall on a market in Tower Hamlets and said, you're not selling what it says on the box, or that ain't packaged right, or that's dodgy, that's contaminated, and they got shut down, nobody would have an issue, would they?
No, that's exactly it.
And he's either sitting very, very still and can do a good Dalek impression, or we've got a slight bandwidth issue there. Oh, he's back.
Yeah, there's a bandwidth issue. It just said
you want to keep frozen or do you want to keep moving? But yeah, that's basically it. So at the end of the day, all's well that's ended well. I'm not going to chase the council for compensation for a day's lost earnings. I could do, I'm within my rights to do so, but the way I see it, it's all worked out okay for me at the moment. Do you get what I mean? And as I say, I don't really want to go ruffling feathers just for a day's money. Do you get what I mean? I really don't. I won't go ruffling feathers for it, but anything else comes of it, and I'll just keep on keeping my eye out for the trading standards guys and stuff like that. Because as I said to my friend today working, I don't think that'll be the last time we see them. I think they'll come back regularly once a month and just check out that we're still playing ball, you know.
And you know, knowing you as I do, I'm sure you won't have an issue with that.
No, I won't, not at all. I've got nothing to hide. When they came to the store, the first time I welcomed them with open arms. It was like, yeah, and it was a great confidence boost for them to walk off and say, yeah, you're compliant. Do you get what I mean? You're fine.
Absolutely right. And, you know, if you're making the effort and you're running your business in a way like that, it's actually kind of nice, isn't it, to be able to demonstrate, hey, I'm doing things properly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're clearly getting a few bandwidth issues, but that's okay, because it's time to kick you off anyway now. So I'd just like to say thanks for keeping us in the loop, Mark. I know I speak for everybody that's watching this or will watch it in the archives, and so I'm absolutely delighted you got that sorted out. You know, you're a good guy. You're definitely one of the good guys, and congratulations. I'm glad you can carry on running your business.
Thank you very much, Dave, and thanks for having me tonight. And thank you, everyone, for the support. It really was overwhelming.
Brilliant. That's a good place to leave that little section. Well done, Mark, and I'm sure I'll see you again soon.
Definitely. Take care, Dave.
You take care.
Bye.
And that's a good place, isn't it, to take our first break? See you in about a minute and a half.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box. Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
And welcome back, and that is a story with a happy ending, isn't it? Because and I'm really glad that got sorted out, not just at a personal level, because I like Mark and I know he's a good guy and I know he does things the right way, but also the precedent that could have set. You know what councils are like, particularly councils that are operated by the same political party as the next council. You know, these things have a habit of spreading fast. Especially when you've got these misinformed politicians thinking that there are things like solvents in e-liquid, you know. So, yeah, proper story with a happy ending. Anyway, let's move on to the next piece tonight. And like I say, I haven't actually done a VT on this show for a long time because I just haven't had time. But this week I found myself with a little bit of spare time. So I thought, I'm going to make a VT. And it's been a long time in the making, this one. But I'll play it and hope you like it. Right, in this VT, I'm going to be taking a look at this setup. Now, you may be saying, Dave, why are you showing us that GP PAPS, which we've seen before, with that AGI Genesis atomiser on the top that you've seen before? And I suppose I better mention a Gary Dibley stainless steel drip tip, which you haven't seen before. And that's a fair question. Why would I be showing you this again? Right, well, long story short, I went to a meeting up in the northeast, the Knees Up, months ago now, and while I was there, somebody handed me a coil of steel rope. It was Dave Dawn that handed it to me, and I forget the name of the person that had given it to him to hand to me. But when he handed it to me, I said, "What's that for?" Because I'm naive and I'm behind the times. And Dave said, "Oh, you can use it as a wick." I said, "Oh, great, I'll give that a try." And then promptly put it down, and it disappeared under the pile of stuff that I'm getting around having a look at. Until the other day, and I thought, hey, I know, I've got a few minutes. I'll make a video of setting up a steel rope wick for a Genesis atomiser, and there's one in here. So I had to have a little dig around. I looked at a couple of YouTube tutorials. There's a couple of different ways of doing things, and I came up with a method of doing it, and this is how I did it. Right, here we go then. I've assembled here all of the things that I think I'm going to need to complete this exercise. I've got obviously a mod to put it on, so that's the GP PAPS, which has got a kick in it at the moment. I've got a silver bullet here as well, which I'm going to use to pulse the thing if I get that far. I got some Canthal wire, which came unravelled off the spool. I've got an atomiser, that's quite important, and the bits that go with the atomiser. I've got some steel mesh. I've no idea what grade it is, I just found it lying around there. I got some rope, the heaviest cutters that I actually possess, which are not that heavy, but hopefully they'll be enough. I've got an e-cigs with a K-Fun light on top, which is for vaping while I do it. I've got a blowtorch. I've got a multi-tool with the screwdriver ready for putting the wire onto the atomiser, and the Allen key that goes with that, and the little grub screw that blocks up the filler hold on the AGI. So just to recap, the object of the exercise here is to wick this here AGI with steel rope. Wish me luck. So I'm going to take the neat end of this rope that I was given and just check that it does fit in there, and it appears that it does. I'm going to sort of figure out how long a piece of the steel rope I need to make my wick. And there it goes, look, getting unravelled. But I need to cut it about there. Here goes. That won't cut it. These things are nowhere near sharp enough. Well, that's a great start. Let's try a different part of the cutter blade. My arthritic hands start to hurt. That ain't having any of it. These are carbide cutters. Let's see if they work any better. I may regret doing this and have to replace the carbide inserts on this multi-tool. Let's see. No, they made light work. it hasn't cut cleanly, presumably because I've had to go with 2 different sets of cutters now. But hey, that's life. This is actually snipping up. There we go. Well done, Leatherman. If I now look at the end that I've got, it's not actually that bad actually. That could have been a lot worse, couldn't it? So I have a piece of wick. It looks as though either end will go into the atomiser. Not quite. If I squish it a bit, it might. I'm just going to trim that, some of the one loose strand, I think. And then it might go in. It does. There we go. That works, look. And it looks to be about the right length. So I've made a piece of wick. That was easy, wasn't it? Got a bit of juice on it now because I didn't clean that tank out. So the next thing I have to do apparently is burn this, and burn it hot. So I have my little blowtorch here, and I'm going to hold this in pliers because it's, let's face it, it's going to get hot. And fire this up. I'm going to heat it until it glows. Right, now with this being totally stainless steel, that is going to retain heat for some time, so do be careful if you're foolish enough to copy me. Yep, that's still quite hot, as you can see. So we'll let that cool down now. So that's cooled down to the point where I can handle it. I suppose I could have had a dish of water or something here to quench it in, but then I'd have had to let it dry. So it didn't take long, 30 seconds or something before I could handle it. Just going to check that it still fits inside the atomiser, because if it don't go in there, it's all going to go a bit wrong, isn't it? There we go, that goes in. And that's my wick pretty much made. Now, because it's stainless steel, it's obviously going to be very conductive. So even though I've oxidized it a bit there, I need to really make a little bit of mesh, just like the traditional way for the top, just enough to go round to stop the kanthal wire that I'm going to use making a connection with the wick inside. So this is going to be a bit sort of finger in the air, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and work out the amount, the height of the wick above the hole in the deck there. So I just want to cover the top of the wick where the wire may touch the wick, and I think that's going to be something like that sort of thickness. So I forgot scissors, didn't I? I got some now. Here's some scissors. So I reckon it's going to be about that much, and I don't need much of it. Like I say, it just needs to, it's not like I'm making a wick here. This is just like if you like, an insulator for the top of the rope wick. So it only needs to go around the top a couple of times really, just to make sure that it's covered properly. Now if I've got this right, it probably makes sense to oxidize this before I do the next bit, thinking about it. So I'm just oxidizing this here wick. Doesn't need a lot. This here mesh, should I say. There we go. So a quick flame just to make that a bit less springy, I guess is the word. And then I can roll it onto the top of my wick like that, and roll it as tight as I can so it doesn't like move around too easily on its own. So what I've got now is my rope with a bit of oxidised mesh at the top, which probably didn't need oxidising quite that much actually, but hey, this is my first attempt, so simply working will be good enough. If I push that in, you can see that works quite well actually. The wick is getting to pretty much the bottom of the tank, hope you can see that, and the top is covered with the mesh. So all I need to do now, all he says, is slap a bit of wire on there. Now one tip I've heard is to perhaps make this slightly lower resistance, so maybe one less turn than you would use with like a conventional Genesis mesh wick, for the simple reason that it takes a little bit more oomph to get going when you're using it. So if that makes any sense at all. I've just realised I put that in the wrong hole. That should be in that hole there. Come on, get in. There we go. So I'm going to put my wire on in the normal way and see how we go. But let's try pulsing it on something. Where the silver bullet comes in. I seem to have got some juice in the system somewhere. There must have been some in the bottom of the tank, but never mind. Just moving the coils about a bit, going to try and get these to glow evenly. So I'll probably edit this bit here, because you don't want to watch me here for a couple of minutes doing this, I'm sure. Right, well, okay, I've spotted one slight issue with this already, and that is I knew I was going to have to pulse this, and the wick would have to be pretty dry for me, you know, for me to be able to do that. But I have to say, this steel wick is picking up every last little bit from the bottom of the tank and wicking it up to the top. So I'm pulsing this to try and you know, make sure the coil glows evenly and everything. And I've been doing this for about 10 minutes now, and it's still wicking up the last little extracts of juice from the bottom of the tank. So that's a big fail on my part. I should have cleaned the tank out properly before I started this, but I didn't. That's life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that coil hasn't got any hot spots or anything, or at least deal with them after the event. I'm going to trim off the excess wire that I've got from my coil. There we go, it's gone. I'm going to fill it up and I'm going to try it. Another thing I noticed is it do not get hot when you're pulsing it. The deck is really hot to the touch at the moment. If I wasn't filming this, I'd be letting it stand to cool down a bit. I mean, it'll be alright. I'll put some juice in, it might sizzle a bit, but it'll be okay. This is a glass tank on this AGI. If that were plastic or polycarbonate of some kind, there might be enough heat to do some damage there. So if you're doing it on something, I don't know, like an RST or something, watch the heat build up when you're pulsing it. So yeah, but I'm going to be a cowboy anyway, as usual, and just bypass that pulsing step and just hope for the best. I'm going to stick some juice into the tank like that, and I know already there's no problem with the wicking from that little experience that I had. This is an AGI, so I'm just going to put the little grub screw in the top. Little bits of off-cut wire everywhere, like a proper vapor's desk. And I'll just put that back in and line the wick up with the air hole as usual. I have no idea what this is going to taste like. It could just be hot spotted to hell. Let's see. Well, we've got vapour. Let's just see how badly it is hot spotting. Not at all. Wow. God, that stuff wicks well, doesn't it? Not a huge amount of vapour coming off there. Let's see. Let's see what it looks like in action. I have no idea what resistance coil or anything I've got, so let's slap it onto the e-cigs. Just move that cafe to one side, which served me well while I was doing all this, and see what the e-cigs says. That said 1.6 ohms, if you can see that. A 1.6 ohm coil, which actually, having watched a few YouTube videos on how to do this, is about where I wanted it, I think. It's very hot. Anyway, let's stick it on the PAPS because it looks nice. And this is a PAPS with an 18500 battery and a kick in it, set to, I'm not really sure, quite high. It's sizzling. Right, I'm going to play with this a little bit, but there's no hot spots or anything. That's working well, and then I'll come back to camera and tell you what I think of it. So that was just over 48 hours ago that I did that, and I've been using it with this setup. I've been through a few batteries and I've had to refill the tank twice, I think, and I can probably give you a good idea of what I think of it now. Now I have to say that there is no real difference that I can tell in flavour or throat hit compared to the normal steel mesh wicks that I've always used for Genesis atomizers before this. It seems to give you exactly the same sensation, but of course it actually was quite a lot less fiddly to do, I found, and I think with a bit of practice this could actually be a lot quicker. The only difficult part really was cutting the steel rope to length, as you saw, but the only difference that I have really noticed is it seems to wick a bit better than the mesh wicks that I've made anyway. This seems to wick a little bit better. So what I'm finding is that I'm having to up the voltage on the kick 2 that's in here, because what's happening is it's drawing the liquid up, and it takes a little while longer to heat up at the normal sort of wattages that I use, so to actually create the vapour. So I'm finding that I've tweaked the wattage up on the kick 2 purely to sort of vaporize that liquid faster, and as a consequence of that I'm putting quite a lot of liquid in here. I'm probably it's difficult to be precise, isn't it, with these things, but I'd say that I'm probably using an extra couple of mil a day based on the last 48 hours. But again, that could be just because I'm liking it and vaping a lot, who knows. But if you're thinking of giving it a go, why not? Hopefully the idiot's guide that I just did will serve you as well as it served me. It worked without any drama, so give it a try, see what you think. Let me know what you think, and I'll mention it on the show. Thanks for watching. slight little echoey sort of feedback sound there, which wasn't planned. It was a little bonus. Yeah, so here it is, and I'm using it. And I was reading some of the comments in chat because it's like the first time that I've tried doing this, and this is still exactly. I've only taken the top off this atomiser just to refill it a few times, including just before the show. And it was interesting reading the comments in chat. Other people are saying, yeah, it does make the atomiser very hot compared to mesh wicks and stuff like that. So I haven't totally messed it up. There were a couple of questions in there as well, and comments that I'll just pick up on. There were a few people are suggesting that using the flat Canthal ribbon wire instead of the 0.2 round wire that I'm using, really sort of together with the stainless steel rope. The ribbon wire is just like the best setup that you can get. And I do have ribbon wire. I've actually got quite a bit of it because I've been given some samples, and I actually bought a fair amount of it actually when people started saying how good it was. And I tried a couple of times to wick the Fagatti with it, which has got a very fine wick, and I was just too ham-fisted. I couldn't get it to work at all. Just loads of hot spots and what have you. But with this, I might stand a better chance because the wick's a bit wider. It's a little easier to make a neat coil with the ribbon. So I'll have a go at that. Maybe next week, maybe a couple of weeks. But I'll have a go because everybody's telling me it's good. I use the 0.2 Canthal now because I'm quite used to working with that stuff. I mentioned hotspots there, and there was a question there in chat while that was going out live, asking me what is a hotspot, and I think it was mostly answered in chat, but just to give you my take on it. A hotspot is an area on your coil which you'll recognise because it's glowing a red hot, hence hotspot. If you've got a hotspot on your coil, it does make the juice taste burnt, but actually it gives you quite an acrid, horrible taste. It's not pleasant at all if you've got hot spots on a Genesis coil. Normally form at the top or the bottom, and you can normally, it's basically caused by the fact normally that there's no juice getting to that part of the coil. So it's getting hotter than it should, hence hotspot. So normally by just moving the wire on your coil up or down a little bit and just messing around a little bit, you can get rid of that. But as you saw in the video there, I didn't get any with this, which is somewhat shocking. And the reason is it's wicking so well. It's not going to get hot at the bottom of the coil because it's probably sitting in a pool of juice. and it obviously wicks well enough to get it up to the top as well. But in summary, hotspots are a bad thing. You don't want them. They taste bad. So there you go. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take us into our second ad break of the evening, and when I come back I'm going to take a look at something that's niggled me a little while with all the politics going on around the Tobacco Product Directive and what have you recently. There's something that just hasn't sat right with me, and I couldn't understand why we've got supposedly learned people in the medical profession who are so anti-e-cig, and I think a little bit of video I'm going to show you after the break might help shed some light on that. See you in a couple of minutes.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
iVapor and iVapor Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's ivapor.co.uk and ivapor-elixir.co.uk. iVapor and ivapor-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of vaportrails.tv.
And welcome back. So, as I alluded to before the break there, while we've had all this discussion about the Tobacco Products Directive going on, there seems to be, it's not just one or two, there's a number of supposedly learned, respectable people in the medical profession, people who hold teaching positions in universities and conduct a lot of studies into the effects of smoking and nicotine, and you know the people I'm talking about. So I'm talking about people like Stanton Glantz. There's an example, and there are others, and we all know who they are. And if not, it won't take you long on Google to find them. But we know, because we're here and we know how much better electronic cigarettes are for your health than smoking tobacco, and yet there are a number of professors and so-called medical professionals really trying to assassinate e-cigs, you know. And we've speculated on this show before, and on many forums and blogs, people have speculated about, you know, what might be behind that. Why would somebody who has devoted their career and their life to supposedly finding to discouraging people smoking, suddenly start discouraging people from switching to e-cigs? Now, I've got no sort of evidence, and there is no suggestion that what I'm about to show you has had any influence on people like Glantz. But it did sort of open my eyes a little bit, because I said before, until this TPD thing came along, I was so politically naive. I'm actually a little bit embarrassed, you know, that politicians might be motivated by certain, you know, but by things that don't necessarily see the voting public right. Let's put it that way. I'm babbling. Let's. I just want to show you something. All right. This is a guy. This is a Wikipedia page about a guy called Peter Rost, and he's a Swedish guy, and it says on Wikipedia he's a former vice president at the pharmaceutical company Pfizer, and most well known for testifying in the United States Congress against the business methods of the pharmaceutical industry. He's also an author of the Insider books, The Whistleblower, Confession of a Healthcare Hitman, which sounds like a good read, and Killer Drug. And this guy's basically got a history of speaking out and highlighting things that he didn't feel are, you know, to show the pharmaceutical industry in a good light. But so fair enough. I notice he's a former vice president of Pfizer. I don't know what he's doing today. But I actually picked this up from a post on UK Vapors by a guy who goes by the name of Dodderer. So I thank him for that, for putting me on to this. And he found a piece of video featuring Mr. Rost. I think they're Norwegian subtitles you're going to see, but the interview that you're going to see in the video is in English. Let's roll it, and let's see if this rings with you like it did with me. Here we go. It's all right. I'm stretching the technology to the capabilities, to the boundaries here at the moment, and I can't operate a mouse left-handed, so I'm going to click that. And then I'm going to do that.
Universities, health organizations, everybody that I've encountered in my former career as a pharmaceutical executive are out there with their hands out. You know, everybody's begging for money. Nobody has any money. The government doesn't have any money. Universities don't have money. Nobody's money. The only ones that have money are these big multinational corporations. And they have lots of money. And they use that money to basically buy influence. And the way it's done is, number one, you give these organizations and institutions grants for various kinds of research. You do develop research together with them. You establish friends. You make sure that they become beholden to you. And you also pay individual professors and doctors and researchers directly. You may pay them as speakers to travel around the country, $1,000, $2,000 per day, sometimes more. You give them money for programs, that the educational programs where they can make a profit, and then they put on these programs, and they're supposed to be third party, independent from the company, which is all fine. But as you and I can both imagine, if you have a promotional budget at a corporation, you're probably going to give that money to the universities that do the programs that most support your drug. And the ones that don't, or are critical in any shape, way, or form, they're not going to get anything. And everybody obviously knows that this is how things work. And that means that even if you can officially claim, well, this is arm's length, we didn't have anything to do with it, we just gave them a grant, they can do whatever they want with it. Reality is, they're not going to continue to get money unless they're saying what you want them to say. They know it, you know it, it's only maybe the public that doesn't know it. And that's how you influence the medical establishment, simply with money.
That was an interesting little interview, wasn't it, that? I'd been quite interested to see the rest of it. That's just an excerpt. So, like I say, it was done by a Norwegian YouTube channel. But what that guy, and let's face it, he's a former vice president of Pfizer, so I would argue that he would know, telling us exactly how it works. They're not allowed to pay medical professionals to say what they want. They can't say, hey, recommend our tablets, or nicotine patches, or, sort of discredit any competition or anything like that. But what they will do is stop funding people who don't sell their message for them. So, like I say, I admit I was very naive, but when you hear it put like that, what conclusion can you draw? I'll leave the rest for you to think and put together yourself, because, I would never go as far as saying that individuals who have spoken out against e-cigarettes may be influenced in that way, but I think we've just seen evidence that it does go on. So there you go. Right, now I'm sort of approaching the end of the show here. It's good to see that the discussion about steel rope was still going on. Somebody's asking me to post it on Twitter. I did. It's there. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm @TheHappyVapor, all one word, and it's there. I can certainly tweet it again. It's also on my Facebook page, which you can find me at Dave Kitson, funnily enough. I'd love to hear any feedback or comments you've got on that. Because, like I say, for me, I've always had this thing. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. In fact, I actively enjoy laughing at conspiracy theorists normally. So when I hear the tales about, they're all on Big Pharma's payroll and stuff, I've kind of taken that with a pinch of salt to a degree. But when you hear that, and what other conclusion can you come to, really, honestly? Right, I just want to plug a couple of meets that are coming up. On the 9th of November, that's a Saturday, we've got the Knees Up, which is at the Crown Inn in South Shields again. And that is going to be good. There is a trailer around for that, but I didn't manage to get it sort of downloaded in time to show it. So I'm sure you'll see it again in the coming week, because Chris put together a wonderful trailer. And then the following week, on the 16th, is Irish Vape Fest. And I think there's a whole bunch of the VTTV crew going. I've still not booked a flight or a hotel, but I'm going to be there. It'll be okay. I'm not sure how I'm getting there or where I'm staying yet, but I'll sort it out. It's going to be fun. And with that, it brings us just about to time. So I'd like to say thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next week. Can't find the credits. Bye.
sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.